All right. Well, good afternoon and good morning to some of you. Welcome to our webinar, Securing Real-Time Communication and Collaboration. My name is Natalie Sorrells. I am our VP of Services here at Worsta. And on the call as well, we have Matt Worsta, our founder and CEO, who we will hear from in just a moment. I want to personally thank all of you for taking the time with us today. And as most of you probably know, right, just to level set, G Suite offers much more, of course, than just email or document creation or file storage, right? It offers an entire suite of cloud-based products that are designed to really change how your organization operates. Taken together, the positive changes in collaboration, productivity, mobility, system management, and so much more can drive true transformation across the entire enterprise. Now, while implementing G Suite and other products within the larger tool set is a major step in the right direction, simply introducing new technology is really only the first step. The extent of your organization's transformation will really be governed by exactly how you manage this change and how you adapt your processes accordingly. So why does this matter? This matters, right, to increase security, reduce redundancies and reduce costs, creates an instant culture of collaboration, and helps you achieve that initial vision of when you went Google or when you've made the decision to go Google, right? So when I talk about increasing security, having a well-defined collaboration strategy really does help align your security posture to avoid data breaches, protect sensitive data, and maintain compliance maybe even with national regulations like NIST, while fully realizing the collaborative benefits of Google. When I say reduce redundancies and reduce costs, right, companies on average pay five times, right, more on redundant software services that are offered as a part of G Suite, right? This means hidden costs lying in inefficiencies due to training on multiple services, lack of service integrations, IT upkeep, and even software bloat. Uncovering these redundancies saves businesses thousands of dollars a year in licenses fees alone. Instant collaboration, right? The movement of data is what limits productivity at most companies. You can only adjust when you have information. And G Suite allows employees across the company, from offices to production to home, to instantaneously share and collaborate on data or content created. Our processes that we're going to talk about a little bit more here today expose where G Suite tools can really optimize current processes and help your business earn more money in less time. And ultimately, right, achieving that vision. Software only works if it's being used to its fullest. Most companies throw software at problems, but by understanding your processes and goals, we're able to better train your employees to leverage the power of the cloud to achieve business objectives. So all of that being said, why are we here today? Who are we, right? We're Worsta. We're founded by Matt Worsta, a former Googler in 2014. And we've really taken a different approach to the Google G Suite ecosystem. Our team is made up of talented engineers, change managers, developers, project managers, and more, all driving towards a common goal to help organizations adapt and grow their businesses by leveraging technology in a human-centric way. This mission makes us different from other partners in a number of ways. We're focused on the why and the how of what you do. This manifests itself in different ways. For example, you'll probably hear many folks talk about leaving certain products behind. We want to focus on the why the move makes sense and how it can be more successful than today. And we're value oriented. Our team strives every day to bring value to every interaction we have. If we're sending emails that are not valuable to other parties, we're not doing something right? So because of these things, our experiences and offerings are different than others as well. Our team is extremely good at migrating data, conducting training, and developing applications and integrations. But we've really been focused on the ways IT can drive value directly to the business and the people who use it. So cue up now the Worsta collaboration design methodology we launched a little over 4 years ago. And who better to tell us more about it than Matt Worsta himself? Matt, you with us?
Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Thanks for being
Perfect. Look at technology working hard.
here. Great.
Thanks, Natalie.
All right, perfect. So the next part of this session, I have a few questions for you, Matt. And the first one is really just to explain what is collaboration design anyway, and why are we talking about it today?
For sure. Thanks, Natalie. And there's a fantastic intro. You did awesome. You're right. We're here to talk about collaboration design. And really what we're seeing organizations doing and starting to take a look at these specific types of collaborative design sprints. So in a nutshell, right, collaboration design is a premeditated, systematic approach to looking at the underlying business processes at your organization and trying to match them up to the currently available tools in the market, right? And so everybody knows, right, that there's all these new collaboration tools and cloud elements and cloud tools, and the last 10 years have been a really monumental time period for our collaboration and all of the different tools that we use to do our jobs every day. But what you might not realize is that a lot of organizations go and they started adding all these tools on, and they never really actually take advantage of the feature set or what these tools are functionally capable of doing. And that's what this collaboration design methodology is all about. It's about guiding organizations through the process of really evaluating and adjusting their workflows, right? What happens at the business to match what the tools are available, the tools that are available and what they're able to do today.
Great. So premeditating your
organization's,
yeah. So premeditating the organization's security and collaboration strategy is more relevant than ever, right?
It's really interesting because we've heard so much over the last 10 years that we installed G Suite. We had some webinars, right? We went through that, and it's so important now, way more than ever, because the tools have advanced so far, and frankly, because offering a training webinar isn't enough. The changes that we've seen they're just huge, right? So saying, hey, Joe and Sally, we'd like you to have a web about how to use Google Spreadsheets platform. That 1 hour webinar is not going to magically incite an organization or an employee or anyone on the team, frankly, to go back and look at the way that they're managing their day-to-day operations and like reinvent that. That's not something that organically happens at most organizations, right? Maybe if you're a really, really forward-thinking, heavy tech company. When it comes to most organizations across the United States and North America, it's not something that is incentivized, frankly, and it's also not something that's really just, there's not a lot of data to show that happens organically, right? So back to your question, right? Why is it more relevant? Because the opportunities for these tools to actually make the business better is huge, right? And adding these tools at the end user level and making small changes, just like in personal finance, for example, making small changes add up and compound over time. Making these small changes that might save a department 15 minutes a day, or reduce your opportunities for human error, right? Make the process a little bit more a little less error prone. Those types of changes are actually going to have compounding effects throughout the organization, because those people are going to realize that the tools have actually helped advance their role or make their job easier, and that compounding effect will proliferate throughout the organization, right? And so what we've seen as you start to make these small changes, and why organizations are really taking a systematic approach to their organization security and collaboration strategy, is they're actually starting to move towards the Forrester research, right? The Forrester research says that you should get 307% ROI on investments in collaboration platforms like G Suite, right? A lot of people have read that. A lot of people have seen the Forrester document. It's a pretty long document, but actually getting to 300% ROI, or even measuring something like that, even if you use the methodology that Forrester employs, it's actually really hard to do without a fully vetted, thought out methodology to move towards that, right? So this is why we say you should methodically look at your workflows. You should look at your security, right? We're going to talk about that. And you should not have a small training initiative, but you should actually, handhold in many cases the redesign or the reprocess, the retooling of specific parts of the business, so that when it comes to being competitive in your market, or when it comes to competing with some of these larger tech companies or tech-enabled companies, at the ground level, your teams are more agile, they're working faster, and they have what it takes, frankly, to really move the business forward, and not just come in and sort of grind away. So that's what designing your collaboration strategy is all about. That's the collaboration design sprint that we have.
That's great. All right. So then you mentioned security, right? And a lot of folks are concerned about the availability of data stored in the cloud. Is security something you would consider when describing or designing a collaboration strategy?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So one of the big concerns that comes up is just data in the cloud in general, right? And so when you talk about security and the way that someone like Google's ecosystem works, there are really two elements to it, right? The first is the physical security, and for the intent of your question, we're going to assume, and there's a different sort of set of conversations we could have here, that Google is going to manage that, right? Their data centers are secure, they've got tanks up front or whatever it takes, and they've done a tremendous job in terms of earning all of the certifications that come with both security and data integrity and all that stuff. So we'll leave the physical infrastructure stuff to the side for a second. But the second part of that is really a paradigm shift from a data perspective on how you can secure your information as an organization, right? So if you think about the old days where you have, file servers in a data center somewhere, and mail servers, and people have desktop computers with all of these files that they save locally, and they've got laptops that go home, and USB drives, and all these different exit points, right? When it comes time to apply a policy, for example, let's say a data loss prevention policy, where you want to look at all of the data across these different disparate systems, and you want to say, help me find PII data. I don't want to leak anybody's social security number. That's super important to me. Make sure wherever that data is, it's locked down, or it has some, rights management strategy attached to it. It's actually really hard to do, right? And the paradigm shift that comes with cloud is where you use something like, let's say, Google's platform, G Suite, your Google Drive and your mail data in a central storage location, right? It's accessed by the internet, but it sits in one place. And so when it comes time to build and have these types of policies, PHI, PII, credit card information, whatever the data might be that you're looking to manage, you don't necessarily have to have this multi-armed octopus of a security methodology, because all of the data sits in one place and you can apply policy directly to it. So for example, if you wanted to put something like that data loss prevention in place, G Suite now lets you have a combined policy set between mail and documents, right, Drive, where you're looking at all of the information that exists and saying, if it meets this criteria, contains credit card numbers or PII data, we can take action. We can lock it down. We can prevent it from being shared. We can prevent it from being emailed. We can, broad strokes, add the guardrails, right, that users need to be highly functional, but also safe, right? Having a data breach is one of the scariest things that can happen to an organization. And so making sure that your users have compliant guardrails in place is super important. And the difference between a cloud strategy and an on-prem strategy is that it's easier to apply that policy to the cloud, right? Everyone connects the same way, and all of the data is in one place to apply policy to it. So that gives you the policy engine and the ability on the back end to really put that stuff in place. But you also have to worry about authentication, right? And so the real strategy, right? Your question was kind of, what do we do? How do we consider this? It's really the first part, right? The first part of a collaboration design sprint is looking at the infrastructure first and saying, okay, what's your authentication strategy? What are you doing to authenticate? How do we know who is the end user and make sure that the end user is who they say they are, right? And so from a G Suite perspective, this is, your existing single sign-on solution, right? If you have an identity management platform and you're using, Okta or ADFS or some other single sign-on tool, you can integrate that directly into G Suite, right? Users don't have to change their password. You can make sure and know that they are who they are, and you can allow them to access resources based on those credentials. If you don't, or if you're interested in using Google's platform, Google offers a really, really powerful authentication system that has a number of layers of warnings and detection systems, right? If you log in New York and Kuwait at the same time, they're going to know, and they're going to actually block or flag your account. Google also has a built-in two-factor. And what we would do, or one of the things that happens at the beginning of that collaboration design sprint, is we really talk about who you might have that are high risk or target users, right? Because those folks are going to need to have an additional layer of security. And where two-factor makes sense, or even their APP program, their advanced protection program, is when you're looking at your finance team, your CFO, the C-level executives, right? The folks that get emails all day long about ACHing money to someone in Nigeria because they won the lottery or whatever. Using APP or using two-factor at the very least to make sure that when those users log in, there's an extra layer of security, right? In some cases, a security key or their phone really helps you identify who the end user is, right? So now we have this two-pronged strategy. We have policy on your data, and we also have a user authentication mechanism that's really strong. And so I know you're you, and I know that when you're accessing data, I can make sure that it's in different buckets and I can take action on it, right, as part of data loss prevention. And so the final piece of that becomes your permissions, right? And when we talk about collaboration design, who has access to what documents and how that's structured is the final piece in the puzzle of making sure that you're secured appropriately, right? So using groups and using what's built in from a documents permission standpoint makes it a lot easier, in my opinion, than having an on-premise system, because you don't have to worry about someone coming into the storage or an administrator or whatever. It's like the document's there, or your piece of information is there, and it has a ACL, an access control list. And whoever's on that list is who has access and what level of access to that particular document, right? And so all this stuff is globally auditable, and because your tools and your documents are all in the same place, you can run that policy and you can do audits and you can understand what's happening very quickly and easily. The last thing that I think a lot of folks don't consider when they go through their initial implementation, and something that we really stress as part of the first part of the collaboration design phase, is understanding your mobile policies and understanding third-party apps, right? So once you have this, let's call it security checkup completed, and you understand what your policy is and your retention program and all of the authentication rules that you're going to put in place, or you've got your appropriate guardrails and things are permissioned properly, making sure that your users can be active with their devices and things they want to work on, right? A BYOD or a bring your own device policy is one of the final steps that we always look at, because what good is being fully mobilized and using this centralized storage in the cloud if you can't, answer an email on the train or work on a plane on your iPad, right? And so the toolkit inside G Suite allows you to enable a bring your own device policy that will lock down and segregate or really silo the data for your work apps, right? For the G Suite apps and these third-party apps we'll talk about here in a second, on a mobile device, right? On an iOS device or an Android device in particular. And so from an end user perspective, right, they might, be answering email or working a document on their phone while they're riding the train home. But and you as an IT leadership group know that not only do you know who they are, right, their authentication is tied down, there are rules in place that if they try to email from their phone a spreadsheet full of social security numbers, it'll get stopped or it'll get flagged and some action will be taken. And you also know that they're enabled, right, to do these things. so you can feel good about that, right? And that's the whole premise, or sort of the baseline, if you will, for this collaborative design sprint. The last piece I wanted to talk about is when it comes to authentication, Google actually will enable third-party applications. And so something that's often overlooked is adding the ability to use those authentication tools with something like Salesforce, for example, or ServiceNow, right? Some of these larger enterprise applications. There's actually hundreds of applications that there's connectors built specifically so that you can tie in your Salesforce data and your Salesforce authentication to G Suite. So now you've got users that are authenticated, they're tightened down, they're on their mobile device, they can access Salesforce, you can even pull that Salesforce data into a Google spreadsheet, for example. And they're doing it all inside the guardrails that you've set up because all that data is contained in that centralized container. That's the baseline, the security part, the initial steps of any collaboration design focused sprint, because now that you have this, you can actually go and look at the finance department's budgeting. You can say, okay, we understand this is how budgeting works, and we're going to help you move it into this fully collaborative environment into these Google Sheets. And you know that we've taken the steps, or you have taken the steps to really put in place all of the right rules and all of the right back-end infrastructure, so that when those users access and start to use the new tooling and the new workflows that you've provided, they're going to be successful, and you are going to be successful and safe. It's a long-winded answer to tie that back around. Do we consider security as part of collaboration design? It's absolutely core to the first steps, because when we want to enable users in an environment that's already set up and ready for them to be successful.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect, thanks. So I want to switch gears. You've mentioned the collaboration tools a lot in that too. So want you to talk a little bit more on why your focus is on Google's collaboration tools. What makes them different?
Great question, and should be a little obvious, right? We're in some ways biased. Obviously Worsta is a Google Cloud Premier partner, and we're very tightly aligned with Google, but it really comes back to the fundamentals, right? Why did we even start down this path? So years ago, 2010, 2011, when the Google editors were first launched, what the team at Google did is they looked at the other collaborative tools, right? The Microsoft editors, the Lotus editors, the different document creation and spreadsheet tools that existed, and they said, how could these be fundamentally better if we started over? And the reason that we are anchored and really excited about something like Google Drive is because the collaboration tools offered by Google weren't adapted from old tools. They were built from zero, right? They looked at this problem and they said, I want to create a document, and the number one problem I have when I create this document is I have to send it to somebody for them to make their edits, and then they send it back to me to make my edits, and so on and so on. And so the tooling that comes with Google Drive today is a 10-year, 11-year iteration on creating something that's designed to be collaborative first and fully feature enabled second, right? So it does less stuff, and everyone's very clear on the ability of it to do like the farthest reaching sort of edge point things, but it's really, really, really collaborative, right? And so we start talking about different contract negotiation strategies, or managing spreadsheets across the organization, right? Fully featured spreadsheet problems. All those things actually are significantly enabled when you can edit them together, right? So anyway, the ability to edit documents together in real time is a huge implication. And those workflows and the business processes throughout the organization can have their cycle times significantly reduced. And that's really what's got us anchored and understanding the Google ecosystem better. In addition, and kind of the sort of follow on to that, is those cloud tools, right? They're all managed in the cloud. You don't have to update them. their feature set can change and be increased over time, and see like a 6-week release cycle in some cases for those things. And the connectors, or the ability to connect with other cloud tools, I'm going to bring Salesforce back in here again, is it's growing very quickly, right? Because everything is API driven, it's not driven on your desktop. And so you can actually build a spreadsheet today in Google Sheets, which automatically pulls Salesforce data and pulls it in, and subsequently builds it down, or even updates your Salesforce data back, right? Which is something that even 5 years ago was unheard of. It was unbelievably difficult to do. Today, it's 4 clicks and anybody can do it who has a Google Drive account. The last thing I think that's really interesting is that Google's taken a very agnostic approach to the way that they are attacking or integrating inside the broader collaborative ecosystem. And so what that feels like is today you can be a Microsoft customer, you can have Office 365, and you can still have Google Drive's enterprise features and Google Drive attached and fully available in the launcher, right, when you're looking at your Outlook, and still use the collaborative benefits that Google's tools have to offer without making any massive infrastructure changes to your organization, right? It's designed and siloed off in some cases to really make it so that you can go and enable your teams to collaborate more effectively without really making any huge changes that might be scary. Anyway, in some of the examples that we've uncovered, right, we had a manufacturing organization that went through collaboration design sprints, and we were unblocking scheduling, production, and shipping all at the same time. We found that, you know, some of their processes, when moved into a Google Sheet, allowed the time it took for somebody at shipping to recognize that, you know, something was not scheduled properly or that production was behind. Huge decreases in those times, right? And that actually led to bottom line increases, right? They were able to change the way that the yield was happening, or increase their yield at the production line because they had the availability of data, right? They had those real-time collaborative benefits. So it's really powerful stuff. We think Google's tools are leading because they've been rebuilt from the ground up. We're very sure, right, that they're the best tools today for real-time collaboration, and the real catch, or the business value driver, is taking that and implementing it into the existing business process that you may have.
Wow, great stuff. So this does sound great, but talk to us a little bit more about how it gets executed in real life. What are some other customer experiences you've had?
Yeah, the real meat and potatoes, right? How does anybody actually do this thing? So executing this type of program is the hard part. And we've seen that happen throughout the years. There have been a number of attempts, right? We've heard of transformation labs and innovation days and these half-day workshops and all these types of things. And what we found, or what we've done repeatedly, is that being programmatic is the key to being successful here. You can't have a webinar or a half-day workshop and really drive change at the business process or the workflow level. You have to start at the top, and you have to make sure that you have executive alignment. There's a team of folks who's at some level engaged and interested in this type of thing, and are willing to help drive it, not 1 day or 2 day or 1 week or 2 weeks, but over a 12 or 24 month period, right? Because the compounding effects, again, just like in interest or in finance, they don't always happen immediately. It takes some time for that to roll, and when it does start rolling, it's really impressive. But you can't lose sight of the fact that without the program, or without this type of like sprint methodology, you can get lost in the weeds and sort of end up all over the place. So collaboration design team, or the collaboration design sprint, needs an executive team and executive sponsorship type situation. You also have to make sure that your actual team members and employees, they know that this is to help their lives get better. Something we ran into a number of times is it's easier to do what you know easier to do what you know than to better the process because it's harder to change, right? And so being really concise and having a change program, and frankly, like an internal marketing program that's, hey, this is going to actually save you time, and this is going to make everybody's engagement better, and all by proxy the organization better, right? That's a really important element. So for example, when we were working with that large manufacturing organization, some of the biggest wins were found after we went and we sat, literally with the end users, right? The guys working on the line or the folks in their QA department. And we would sit with them and say, we get it. You have to enter 500 lines into the spreadsheet every week. But when you're done, you send it off to this other person and they generate some report. And what if we could make all that stuff happen automatically? And when we really started to work through that with them, like the lights went on, right? And as soon as it's such a great feeling, because when you're sitting and you see that, it's oh wait, it can do that. Oh well, that'll make all this so much easier, right? And you've uncovered these impacts, or you found these things that will ultimately move the organization forward. But even then, kind of the last piece here is that they're not going to be able to do that themselves, right? They still need a little bit of handholding, or most folks will need some handholding to really see the final vision and get that last thing in place. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but it's a programmatic approach that has some runway, right? It needs some time, and it needs a team of people or a set of organizational leaders who are interested in it both being successful and frankly making decisions along the way to help push that forward.
Sure, no, that's great. So how would you recommend modeling this at an organization today? What are some direct steps that people can take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we do collaboration design sprints, we talk first about securing the environment, and that's one of the things we talked about earlier. So in terms of a set of steps, right, I would first have an initiative or a sprint, if you will, to sit down and really work through what you want to do as an organization from a retention standpoint, from a security control standpoint, from a data loss prevention standpoint, and authentication and mobile device management, right? Look at the full gamut of your security posture and the way you want your cloud environment to work for these users. Sometimes that's challenging. That's a tall task, right? The legal folks want 3 days retention, and the teams are telling you need at least 2 years, or the ability to agree on a data loss prevention strategy, right? Things like that. But it's really important to do that first, because when you start to make these changes later, you don't want to impact the processes that you've updated. You want to make sure that the environment is set up properly and designed well so that you can go and make these changes, right? So work through your security, right? Securing the environment first. Get your third-party applications connected. Get your authentication and your two-factor sorted out, and move the ball forward there. When you're complete, when you're done, think about our excellence. Step 2 would be have and find some folks in the organization, both at the senior level as well as at the more junior or more sort of boots on the ground level, who are motivated and excited about technology and how it might be able to help the organization. This, let's call it an innovation center of excellence, is going to be crucial because they need to be empowered, right, to help the organization move some of these changes forward. But they're also going to be the reporting agency for the C-level executive team, right? So this center of excellence is going to manage the program to help make decisions as we move forward, and what's valuable and what's not valuable, or what's really impactful. But they're also going to report up, and they're going to show progress and ultimately results as part of their execution of the entire collaboration design sprint. And that's really, really helpful, because it's important to make sure that the right visibility exists for something like this. And then you get really down into the nitty-gritty, right? When you're talking about collaboration design sprints, after you've secured the environment and set it up, and you have the center of excellence, this group of folks that are ready to really help drive this forward, we're talking about picking a department or a group of folks in the organization and really sitting down with them and doing structured discovery, right? I want to understand how you use spreadsheets today. Let's talk about what business workflows are challenging. A lot of times what we found in organizations is that the person closest to the work really knows where there are challenges and frankly has some good suggestions on how it might be improved. And when you combine that with the knowledge of the actual platform, right, what the tools can do, it makes for a really, really just eye-opening set of circumstances, because they'll say, hey, we should change this because it's challenging to do it, and you know, we wish it could be done different or better in this way. And then the other side, the folks from the Center of Excellence or this consultant team will say, what if we could do this? What if we could create spreadsheets that automatically generated dashboards? And the lights come on and it becomes fantastic. And then the last piece is actually taking those ideas, right? So you document those ideas, you work with the teams in that structured way, and then you come out and you say, okay, now we understand that this thing has to change, or we're going to change the budget process and we're going to generate budget dashboards in this way. Really implementing that with that department or that team and handholding them, right? We will help you recreate that budget. We will work with you on an implementation strategy so you don't have any business interruptions, right? We don't want to stop the budget process. We just want to make sure that you transition it from the old way to the new. And then you move on, right? Then you start that program again with a different department or with a different set of users. And so the reason that Center of Excellence is so important is because you may have, you know, a huge number of users or a very large number of departments across different locations, et cetera, making sure that they have a governing body in the Center of Excellence and then working with them one at a time has really been our most successful approach, right? Sitting with finance, helping them adjust some of their processes and understand the tools, really implementing those new changes, and then moving over to production or HR or the next group. What happens is, you know, we talked about originally about those compounding effects, is that the finance folks are impressed and they're excited. And then you find out that they actually have some interaction with, you know, the HR folks. And as you're working with HR, finance is really helping move the attitude, right? Shifting the culture towards that innovation. And then HR is you know, they find their different things that are super helpful, or they rebuild some of their business workflows. And then as you're moving to the next one, you kind of end up with this groundswell, right? And so while you're working through the organization and while you're really building out these different processes and workflows, the momentum increases and increases and increases. And then one day, the report to your executive team is that the entire organization is working faster and starting to be more innovative and coming up with things on their own, right? And the finance folks will come back and they'll say, hey, while you guys were off working with the folks in production, we thought this other thing up. Could you help us with it? How do we get this put into place? And that's how you know you've really reached the tipping point and you've started to change the way the organization works. So I hope that's helpful. Those are really the 4 steps, right? And to recap, it's really secure the environment and design your system first. Spend the time, go through the conversations with legal, go through the conversations with compliance, make sure that it's set up the way that you would expect. Then build a Center of Excellence and make sure you know who the governing bodies in the organization, and then repeat this 2-step process of working with the teams to uncover and find these opportunities, and then implement the changes and handhold them through it, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. Does that make sense? Sound good, Natalie?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Matt. And that's all my questions. And I haven't seen any come in on the questions panel. So thank you so much for taking the time to answer my questions today, Matt. And for all of you who've joined, I'm completely inspired by the number of people who are interested in starting this kind of conversation. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. If you think collaboration design is interesting, or you want more information, or even more information about security and cloud risk assessment, you can always visit our website at worsted.com, or feel free to reach out directly at info@worsted.com. Thank you guys so much, Matt. Thank you again. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, take care.